everyone, my name is Michelle and this is my channel Sewing Bunny. Thank you for joining me in my video today, which is my September sew along. And this was voted by you guys when I shared my September sewing plans. I put up for a vote as to which one you would like to see as the sew along, and you guys picked the Friday Pattern Company Joni jumpsuit. So this is what I'm going to be making today, and I do have to just mention that for some reason you can't buy this pattern directly from Friday Pattern Company anymore. I don't really know why. I don't know if they've kind of like discontinued it for some reason on their website, but I will link it down below because you can get it from the fold line still. So I will link it down below for anyone that is wanting to try this. So as you can see from the picture here, we've got a full-length jumpsuit with this lovely sweetheart neckline. You might not be able to see it too well here, but there is this detailing at the back where you've got this tie at the back, just at the top part of the back there. And it is designed for stretch fabrics. So I have got a lovely ponte, which I will show you a little bit later on, for what I'm using for it. But the first thing I need to do with this is I need to work out what size I'm going to do. Now, when you're using knits, sometimes you do have to take into consideration that knits have negative ease on some patterns. So for instance, I mean, I'm wearing a t-shirt today, and when you go, say, like across the bust, you may have a slightly smaller finished measurement because the fabric is stretchy, so it can stretch obviously over the bust. But then also you don't necessarily want negative ease maybe around like stomach area and things. So again, you can see I've got a little bit of normal kind of wearing ease. It's not stretched. So I just want to kind of think, I don't want anything with too much negative ease, but also I don't want it too baggy because it's meant to be a nice fitted jumpsuit. So I'm having a look at the back. We've got your standard measurements as well as finished garment measurements. Now, what I will do is I will have a look at what my measurements are and where I sit on this scale. So my measurements, I'm a bust of 36 inches, a waist of 30 and a hips of 40. And I have Misty dying to come in the room. If you can hear any meowing, I will let her in a minute. And so for me, because my bust is 36, I fall into a size medium for that, because that's a 36 to 37 inch bust. Now my waist, as I say, is 30. Now for a medium, it says 28 to 29 inches, but the large says 30 to 32. And the hips for, oh, you are in. Hello. Right, so sorry, so the medium, the waist is 28 to 29, but the large is 30 to 32. So that would mean that I'm fitting more in the large part of the waist. And then the hips, again, for a medium, it's 37 to 38, which is smaller. And the large is 39 to 41. So I fit for a bust, a medium, and then for the waist and hips, I'm a large. So I'm thinking, yeah, I may have to grade in between those two sizes. So now I'm going down to have a look at the finished garment measurements. So I'm going to have a look at the medium. So the finished garment measurement for the medium is a 34 bust. And that, again, is so you've got the negative ease going across the bust. And as this is, you can see here, it's a fitted bodice on there. It's allowing for that stretch across the bust. So I think I'm happy with that, because I also have heard that some people have a little bit of gaping underneath kind of like the arm and the bust sort of area. So I'm actually thinking that I should be all right for that. For the waist, it's got 29 inches and the hips is 40 inches. So the 29, so that would mean it would have to then stretch an inch across my stomach, which I'll be honest, I'm not that keen on. I don't mind if it kind of sits like on the same measurement. So if it said the finished garment measurements was a 30, I'd be all right, but I'm just not sure if I want it to stretch that much. But for the large, the finished garment measurement is a 31, so that's 1 inch over. The hips for a medium, it's 40, which is bang on what mine is. And then for the large, it's 42. So I'm kind of thinking what I might do is do a medium for the bust. I'm going to grade out to the large for the waist and the hips, because I just think for this particular design, I think I'm fine with it being fitted up here, but I don't know if I want it too fitted around the stomach and the hips. I just don't think I necessarily want it too clingy. So I think that's what I'm going to go for. So I'm going to do a medium, grade it out to a large. So yeah, I'm going to get opening this because I haven't even opened the package yet. And I'm going to see what pieces I need to cut out. I always trace my patterns, so I'm going to get tracing and I'll pop you on fast forward so you can see me doing that. Now I thought I would just show you what I'm doing for my grading. So what I've done is, this is the front bodice piece. So what I've done is, because I want a medium on the bust line and I want a large for the waistline, what I've done is I've traced out a medium all along the top, and then this fold line I've actually gone all the way down to the large line here. So what I need to do is I need to connect this line and this line. Now there are a number of ways that you can do this, and I think it's just entirely what your body shape is like. Probably one of the easiest ways to do it is just to grab a ruler and measure from the medium to the large, and what you could do is you could just grade that way. So you could just draw a line directly from the medium to the large if you want to. But what I want to do is, because this is going to be the bust area, I don't really want to have extra at this point. I want my extra to be more kind of down this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this notch on the medium to grade out there. So I'm almost creating a bit more of a shape coming in and then going out, because I just personally find that works best for me. It's entirely up to you how you like to grade. This is just the way I like to do it. So I'll just draw out what I'm going to do, and then I will show you. So if you can see here, so I've kept the medium line going all the way down, and then when I hit this notch, then I'm going out to the large. And I'm doing that because if I show you again this line drawing, we'll see here that this section here does actually sit on the waist. So it just means that I know by this point I need it to go out to the size large. I just find if I grade too high up, it's going to affect the bust, and then it could be a bit too baggy there. So I do hope that kind of makes sense. What I then do from the bottom of this, because I've now done the large and I've graded out to the large, it means on the trouser piece I just cut a straight size large. So I hope that makes sense on that. So that's the front bodice piece, and then the back bodice piece I just need to make sure that I do something similar. So when I get to the back bodice piece I will show you that too. And here is the back piece. So this is my tracing of the front piece. Now I'm looking for this notch because this notch lines up with these notches. So again, exactly the same as what I did for the front. I've done the medium on the top, and then I've gone down to the large at the bottom. Don't know if you'll just be able to see that there. And so now I've got to again connect these two lines up. So depending on however you graded on your front piece, you want to do the same on your back piece. So be it whether you did the line, you know, join up from medium to large if on that, or like me, if you graded out from the notch, then what I'm going to do is again, I'm going to grade out just like this one here. If you can see my little kick out there from this one. So I'll do that and then show you. And there we go. We can see I've followed the medium and then kicked out to the large. Now, I didn't mention actually when I was showing you the front piece, I used the medium notch on this one because that's the one that best represents where that's going to be sitting. So this notch and this one will line up well once I've done that now, because I say I've done this and kicked it out there, and I've done this one and kicked it out there. So this hopefully should be a really nice fit. I'm going to now continue tracing the rest of the pattern and then come back to you. So there we go, all of the pattern pieces are now traced and cut out. Now I do quite often get asked what tracing paper I use, and to be honest I've got a whole variety of different tracing papers. My favourite one that I always used to get, I haven't been able to get for months and months. I think it used to come over from Europe, and it's just not been available for ages. So I've been trying out all these different types of tracing paper. And this one I will link down below. It's from eBay. It is quite a nice one. It's kind of thin enough not to be bulky, but it has got quite a nice structure. It's not too like thick, but it's not too thin. I've also got, you might have seen I added on like a little extra piece onto my strap bit. There's this sort of style which is very thin, very papery. It's not my favourite, but yeah, it has its uses. And then you may have seen in other videos, I've got ones that are similar to this, but slightly thicker, and I don't really like using that one. So I would just suggest that tracing paper, don't necessarily go by my recommendations, you know, everyone, you know, each to their own. Just try out a whole load of different types is what I suggest. But yeah, this one is quite nice. It's probably one of the nicer ones that I found. It's very wide. It's still maybe not quite as thin as I would like not as papery. It's still got kind of like that kind of sheen on it, which I'm not a massive fan of, but it's still nice. And also some people ask me actually as well what pen I use to trace out on, because I think quite a lot of people use like pencils, biros. I actually use these, which are the like fine liners. And I just pick up a pack from Amazon. They're not expensive at all. And they're these little like fine nibbed ones. And that's kind of what they look like. And then we've got kind of quite a fine nib on there. But it's like a felt tip pen. And I just find that it gives quite a nice thick line, which you can, when you cut out your tracing, you can cut on the line. So if I was to use a pencil or a biro, I think I kind of find my cutting can be quite kind of inaccurate, whereas using a kind of like a felt tip sort of style, I find I can cut on the line, so I'm quite accurate. Also, what I like about these is here they are washable, so if you do get any, because I do sometimes get like the lines on my hands and things, if I get any on my clothes or anything, I know that it'll wash out. So yeah, I do love these. Right, so let's get on to now cutting out the fabric. So the fabric that I've got, I've picked it up from Satisfaction, and it's quite a hefty bit here. It is a navy blue ponte. It's really nice and soft, this stuff, and I just think it would be lovely for this jumpsuit. So yeah, I'm going to get cutting. One thing I do check is I don't know necessarily what height patterns are drafted for. Now I love it because in Friday Pattern Company instructions, they do tell you what it is height wise. There we go. There's a little section just here. And it says this pattern was drafted for a B cup and a height of 5'5". So in sewing patterns, I am a B cup, which I think relates to the inch difference between your high bust and your main bust, which I think a B cup is 2 inches, which is exactly what I am. So that's good. And height of 5'5". Now I'm 5'8", and I must admit I did put one of the trouser pieces up on my waist, had a look down, obviously very technical, just see how long it is, and I kind of just saw how long it was to the bottom of my jeans, kind of very roughly just kind of went like this to kind of measure and put it up against my ruler, and it was about 3 inches. So that makes sense. Drafted for 5'5", I'm 5'8", so 3 inches extra is bang on. So I am going to add 3 inches onto the bottom of the trousers. Just be careful if you do extend things, you know, lengthwise, if there's a length and shorten line to have a look at. But the trousers, if you can see, they're not different shape kind of from here. So it's not like you need to lengthen it up here or anything. I can just literally add 3 inches onto the bottom. I made myself a little note just for future reference saying add 3 inches. So I'm going to add 3 inches onto the legs. So I should have enough fabric for it, because I think this says, I think for the width of fabric I've got, I think it said it takes about 2.1 meters, I think, and I got 2.5 meters, so I should have plenty. Okay, well, I'm going to get cutting. I'll pop you again on a fast forward and I'll speak to you in a bit. I actually bought 3 meters of this ponte because, yeah, I've got loads left over. I've got a whole another meter, more or less. So yeah, that would be lovely. That'll make myself a nice skirt or cardigan or something like that. I can use it for some sleeves and bits and bobs. So that's lovely. I've got a chunk of that left over. So yeah, all my pattern pieces are cut out. So there's my lovely little pile there. So now I'm going to have a look at the instructions and see where we start. So it is nice on these instructions because at the very front, if you can see there at the bottom, it gives you the seam allowance nice and clearly. I love it when they do that at the front, because if you just kind of forget what seam allowance it is, you can just quickly look there. You don't have to try and trawl through all the instructions for it. So the first step is to sew the strap pieces together. So let me just grab those. So I've got my 2 strap pieces here. Now, if you're using ponte, sometimes it's very difficult to find the wrong side and the right side, or they can even be kind of double-sided and they'll be exactly the same. With this stuff from Satisfaction, I can tell that the right side is slightly more kind of like softer, fluffier than the other. So what we want to do is we want to lay them out like long, sort of like across long ways, and then we want to do right sides together folding. So this, I know, I can see this is the wrong side, so I'm going to flip it up so that I know that this is the right side. And again with this one, so both right sides up, and then just fold it the whole way down lengthways. So do that for both of those. Like so. These are nice actually because they do have little notches in them as well. So you'll be able to see, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that at all of anything there, but there is a little notch. So both of them should line up. I hope you'll be able to see that. I'll zoom in if not. So yeah, those are your two straps. So now I'm going to sew all the way down the long ends because, yep, 5/8 of an inch at the front, and then it says to trim them. So I will get doing that. Those are my straps now sewn together. Dark colour, so you're not really going to be able to see much on there. You might be able to see my stitching line. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim all of that now, just to a slightly narrower seam allowance, and then I'm going to turn them inside out using a pin, or safety pin. So I'll just cut these down to a smaller seam allowance. So that's the seam allowances trimmed down. I've done them about half, and now I'm going to turn them the right way out. So I'm going to grab myself a safety pin. I'm going to use quite a large one because it is quite a large strap. So I'm going to pierce that through, and then feed it back down. I think I have shown you guys this technique that I do on one of my other videos where I was doing straps. But yeah, you can get like different like loop turners and like, you know, little bits and bobs kits like that. But to be honest, I find a safety pin is all right for if you're dealing with slightly thicker straps. If you're dealing with really tiny straps, like if you're doing like a little cami top or something like that, then, you know, it might be worth getting some of those loop turners because I do think they are really useful for small straps. But the larger ones, I don't think there's anything wrong with a safety pin. Right, I'll continue doing this. Once I've fully turned them through, I'll come back. So there we go, both straps are now turned out. Now they're all kind of a bit like wibbly wobbly and everything now, so I'm just going to go out and give them a press so that they're a little bit more flat for the next step. So I've pressed my straps now. It doesn't say in the instructions to press them, but I just think it's a good idea just to work with them as flat as possible. Also, what I've done is one of the ends I've just kind of tucked in on itself because you need to finish it off. So I don't know how well that's going to show up there, but I've just kind of got the fabric, tucked it in on itself, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a zigzag stitch just along this bit here just to secure it down. So I'll do that now, and then we I think have to attach these to the front bodice. So there we go, I've just secured that across there. Should I say, not the neatest thing in the world, but it does the job. So now we've got to attach these to the front bodice. So let me just have a look and just make sure. Now, very strangely, on my front bodice piece, it says that there should be a notch just on this top part here. So I thought, oh, I've obviously forgotten that from the pattern piece. But when I pulled out the pattern piece, there is no notch on this front section there. So I think that might be an error with the pattern. But what I'm going to do is, it looks like it's just placing the strap in the centre point of this. So I'll just do that, to be honest. So So we have two bodice pieces here because the bodice of this jumpsuit is lined. So one piece is your lining piece and one piece is your front piece. So I'm just going to grab one of them. For me, it doesn't matter which one because I'm just self-lining it with the same fabric. And you're wanting this right side up. So I'm just making sure that is the right side of my fabric facing up. And then you want to get your straps, and you've got one end which is closed, which I've sewn together, and one end that is open, and you're going to want to lie those. Now, according to the instructions, where the notch is, but my pattern doesn't have a notch. So just on this straight line up here, I'm not sure whether you'll be able to see it. So it kind of goes up, then you've got a straight bit, and then it goes down into the sweetheart neckline. So it's this straight section where you put the strap. So I'm going to lie the strap in the centre of there, and I'm going to pin that in place. And then I'm going to do exactly the same for the other one. That looks around about central. I'm sure what you could do is you could just measure the top bit and then just make your own notch that's the centre point, but to be honest, I think you can just eyeball it. And what I've done, just in case anyone is wondering, when I've pressed the strap, there's one end which is kind of like the seam end, and I've done that on the outside, so that just means that the seam line is going to be on the outside. I hope that sort of makes sense. You won't be able to really see it, but yeah, just thought I'd mention that's what I'm doing. So that is that one. I'm presuming we want to now baste that. Yep, so baste those in place. So I will do that now. So that is my straps now basted into place. So I'm going to lie that back down with the right side up. So we have this section right side up, so just where we basted the straps. So have that there. And then you grab your lining piece and you want to have the right side of that as well. So this is my right side here. So I'm doing right sides together. I'm lying it over the top, and the straps are going to be sandwiched in between both of those. So right sides together, line it up. And then I'm going to get that pinned in place, and then it's saying to sew along this top section all the way around the neckline. You leave the sides open, you don't do those yet. One little tip which I find when you're sewing a V neckline is, because you're using a seam allowance, it's kind of knowing when you should pivot at that V point. Now I find it's easier if you grab yourself a bit of chalk. I've got this little green chalk pen that I like to use, and what I tend to do is I just draw a line just down from the V, and I will insert a little picture of what that actually looks like, but it just means that when you're following on the seam allowance, you know where your pivot point is, so you don't have to kind of guess and see where that that V point is. You can actually just use that line to stop and then pivot. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, so I'm going to get that all stitched up and then come back to you. Now all sewn together. I don't know if you'll be able to see where I've done my chalk line and the stitch line there. I've kind of caught it in the light there. You might be able to see. So it's just easier to get that pivot point. So now the instructions say to trim those seam allowances. So I'm just like when I did the straps, I'm just going to cut those in half along here, and then I'll have a look and see what the next instruction is. So actually the next instruction is just to flip it out the right way and give it a press. So I'm just going to flip that out there, and yeah, so we've got the first signs of the front of the jumpsuit. like so. So I'm just going to give that a really nice press, and then it looks like we're working on the back bodice. So now we're moving on to the back part of the bodice, and you've got your two little kind of strap tabs. So exactly the same as what we did for those front straps. We're going to do right sides together lengthways on those ones. And so, yeah, sew them across there, turn them inside out. You don't need to finish off the ends of these ones because they're going to be attached to the bodice. They don't need to have a tied up end. So I'm just going to do that quickly off camera because you've seen me do it with the long straps. You don't need to see me doing it again with the little ones. So I'll do those and then come back. Okay, so I've done my two little short little straps. And just very similar to what we did on the front, we need to attach these onto the back bodice pieces. And I've got 4 pieces of the back bodice, so I only need 2 of them because 2 of them are lining. So I've set those other pieces to one side, and what we need to do is we need to attach these straps to these pieces. Now there is a notch on this one, so you find your notch on your back bodice piece, and also you've got a notch on your strap pieces as well, if you can just see that there. And so what you need to do is you need to line up, so you need to fold these in half and line up those 2 little notches, and then line up those notches to your back bodice notch, and then pin that in place. Now this is going to be quite bulky going through the machine. That's a lot of layers that it's going through. So I'm going to use I've got one of those little humper jumper things on into my machine, which looks like this. So I'm going to use this to go over these bulky seams because, yeah, otherwise you could get quite a bit of nesting. So have a little practice if you've not done that before. But yeah, it probably is worth using one of those when you're working with really bulky fabrics, because this is Ponte, so it's not a lightweight fabric by any means. So yeah, we're going through 5 layers of fabric there, so it's going to be quite bulky. Okay, so I'm going to baste those in place and then I'll come back to you. So I've attached my little humper jumper on here, so it's just a case of lifting the foot and sliding it underneath and just making sure that it lines up okay with the machine. Yep, so like this. I will try and show you. So I'll put my needle down, I'll take my pin out. I've got this pin in here because I just want to make sure that it stays in place. So yeah, I will just show you how this works. So now that's slid in, I'm now going to lower my foot so the needle is down, and then I'm going to start sewing. Okay, and then I'm just going to try and take this little pin out because that's getting quite close to that. And you can adjust the humper jumper. So again, needles down, and I can bring that forward a little bit more because you can see how many layers of fabric we've got here. And then keep going. And again, if you're coming to the end, lift up the foot, move that down a little bit more, lower that presser foot again. I hope you're seeing this okay. Sorry, I'd need both hands for this. And then carry on. There we go, we've got to the end. So you can take that off, pop that down. I'll just do a quick back stitch. Got my thread there, foot up, and I'm hoping you'll be able to see that I've got no nesting because I used that little humper jumper thing. So I hope that shows it off anyway for anyone that's not used one before. So those are those little tabs now sewn on there. And again, similar to what we did on the front bodice, we now need to sandwich those straps in with the other pieces. So again, grab my other back bodice pieces, find the right side, so right sides together there, and right sides together there. So you're sandwiching in those strap pieces under there, and then we're sewing along the top. So again, where those straps are, that's going to be some pretty bulky fabric because you're adding another layer on. So if I just showed you how I used the humper jumper, so if you do have one, I highly recommend using it there. For anyone that's wondering, I am using a size 90 jersey needle for this project. So I think that probably is the most suitable because it is quite a bulky fabric. So I'm going to get those sewn up, and then I'll come back to you. So that's those put together, and again, I always seem to show you details on dark fabric, so I do apologise. I hope I can get the light right, but you may be able to see I've got one row of stitching, which was my basting, and then just underneath it there is my stitching there. So you can see using that humper jumper has given a really nice smooth stitching line, so no nesting or anything. So really pleased with that. So just like the other one, I'm just going to trim the seam allowances, put them the right way up and give them a press. So I'll come back once I've done that. So those have now been pressed. So looking nice there. So now we're attaching these pieces to the front bodice piece. So I'll just grab that again. Ooh. So now if you can imagine, we're going to be popping this side piece on this end and this side piece on this end. You're probably not going to see that very well. Let me shuffle things over a little bit more. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. So that's kind of what we're going for. That's what we're going to be looking at. So what we need to do is we need to attach these to this piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up this front bodice, and let's just start, say, with one of these. Open up that as well. And what it is we need to attach these two together. So this is the wrong side. It's the right side that we want. Right side, wrong side here, right side here, right sides together. So we're going to pin all of that right sides together, so you're sandwiching it there. So it means you're just working with the wrong side. So I hope that kind of makes sense. And then you're going to sew all the way up there and then do exactly the same with this side. So you're going to open it up, and then you want to grab the right side of your fabric here, the right side of your fabric here, pop those together, and again line it up and sew all the way up there. So I'll get that all pinned, all sewn, and then I will come back to you. So I've sewn up those edges, and I've also trimmed the seam allowance as well so that it looks less bulky. So if you can imagine, that is what it's going to look like. So you've got the side bits there and they go all the way around to the back. So it's looking nice. Now, what I am going to try and see is if I need a zip, because in the instructions it does say that the zip is optional at the centre back, and it's a stretch fabric, so I might actually be able to get away with not having to put a zip in. So what I'm going to do is the bodice, I'm actually going to just kind of join up at the back and just do a little test to see whether I can get this bodice kind of, you know, step into it, push it through up through the hips and see whether it'll be okay to do that. Otherwise, if not, then I will have to put the zip in. Now I'm going to use some large safety pins because that's probably, I think, the best way of finding out whether it will go through. I don't want to use pins because well, they might come out and you know, poke where you don't want them to, where safety pins obviously you can, you know, tuck away the sharp bits. I do like to use wonder clips as well. The problem is with wonder clips, because they are obviously clips in there, when you're stretching over, they could so easily just ping out of place. So yeah, there's probably no point me trying that. So I'm just going to put in just a few safety pins, and also to pin it in the seam allowance as well. So don't pin it right up to the edge. We need to be realistic and see whether it will actually go through. So I'm just putting in my last safety pin. So those are my safety pins there. So now I'm just going to do a little test to see whether I can get it over my hips. Obviously going to be taking the jeans off because they're going to be really grippy. So I'll do a little test and then come back. Brilliant. So no problem getting over my hips. The fabric is stretchy enough to go over really comfortably. So I am more than happy to get that closure fully closed and not use a zip. So that is fab. So what I'm going to do is, let me just take these safety pins out. So I'm going to slightly detour from the instructions because I do want that back panel closed. Is very similarly to what we've just done, attaching the side pieces to the front bodice. Is now I'm going to open it up and I'm going to do right sides together. So if I flip this round, get all the little straps, pop them in the middle so they don't get all caught up, and I'm going to do right sides together there and do exactly the same and sew that up, and then that means I've got a really nice enclosed layered bodice, or lined bodice rather. So it just means that it will look really nice and neat. So I'm going to get that all pinned, sewn up, then turn it all the right way round, give it a really nice press, and then come back to you. So I'm hoping you'll be able to see this okay. So there we go. So that's the front of the bodice there. And then I've just kind of tied it up sort of at the back a little bit. And the back part of the bodice where the zip was meant to go, I've closed it up there. So it's really nice and neat. So yeah, that is the bodice done. So let's have a look and see what is next on the list. So next up is the pockets. So again, pockets are optional. You don't have to have pockets on the jumpsuit, but yeah, kind of if a dress or a jumpsuit has a pocket option, I'm going to go for it. So what we want is wrong side up on the pockets. And what we're going to do is this straight line here, going to fold over, I think it is by ½ an inch, the instructions say ½ an inch. So I'm going to press that down, and then all of the corner as well, that is also going to be turned over 1/2 inch as well. Now it can be a bit tricky when you go round a corner, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be going out to the iron, giving it a really good press and just trying to get a nice pressed curve on there. Sometimes what you can do is, if you are really struggling, is you can sew just a kind of guide line down these curve edges, and then you can clip into it and then fold it over. That can help some people. I'm just going to go to the iron and just give it my best. So I've folded my pockets over and pressed them, so you can see there. So it's not too bad, just doing it by eye. What I tend to do is kind of just like make some little folds just to get those corners just right. So now I'm going to attach them to the front trouser pieces. So let me just grab those. Before I grab the trouser pieces, actually, sorry, I missed a step, is this piece that we folded over on this straight diagonal edge, we do actually need to sew in place. So I need to do that for both of those, then I can get them attached to the trousers. I'm just getting a bit eager. So yeah, just off camera, I've just stitched that pocket down. Again, I always show you dark fabrics, isn't it? I'm not sure if you'll be able to see there. I've done the seam allowance at 1 centimetre. Which is 3/8 of an inch, just because I thought that one was the best one for that. So now I can get my leg pieces. Now what I do with my trouser legs, whenever I make any trousers, the first thing I do is pin the bottom of the legs, because then I know that these are the front pieces. Because trouser legs, to me, just look so similar, like the front and the back. The amount of times that I've taught myself out by putting a front leg and another front leg together when I should have done a front and a back leg. So what I do is I put a little pin just at the very bottom of the trouser leg, so I know I'm working with the front legs, and then when I join them up later on, I know to get one with a pin and one without a pin. So just a little tip there in case you have a similar issue where you've done that problem before. Okay, so let's lay this one out. So I've laid out my one of my front legs, and I'm going to get the corresponding pocket piece. Now again, I'm sorry if you can't see this because I know it is a dark fabric, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the pocket with the trousers. Now there is a notch on this side here which corresponds to a notch on the pocket, so you can line that up as well, and then all the bits that we've just tucked underneath for the pocket, just make sure they are tucked under. So I hope you can see that, because when I look at it, all I see is just a very dark blob. So I'm going to pin that in place. And then what it's asking you to do is to baste along the top to secure that end of the pocket, baste across this bit here to secure that part of the pocket, and then top stitch all around this curve area to secure it in place. So I'm going to get it all nicely pinned and everything, and then go to the sewing machine, get the basting and the top stitching done, and then I will come back to you and show you it once I've finished. Had to turn the light on, it's getting quite dark now. We're definitely in autumn. Right, so that is the pockets done. Again, I'm sorry if you can't see the detail on there. I'll take a picture and put it on screen so you can see it a little bit better. So I've basted it and top stitched. We're just using a zigzag for that pocket to go in place on both legs. So let's just have a look at what the next step is. Okay, so now we're going to put front leg and back leg together. So I'm going to grab one of my front leg pieces and grab the corresponding leg for the back. So it's right sides together, and it's saying to do the inseam first. So again, hopefully you'll be able to see at least the rough shape anyway. So yeah, so it's just this one. So you've got the curve here, and it's this one that we're doing. So just from this point down to the bottom of the trousers, stitch that first for both legs and then trim the seam allowance. Now, sometimes what I do is I like to overlock knits. I'm not going to overlock this one. I'm going to just keep it as my normal zigzag stitch because this doesn't fray, this fabric, at all. I think it's going to be absolutely fine, and I don't want to add more bulk than what's needed because, as I say, it is quite a bulky fabric anyway. So I'm just going to do my zigzag stitch all the way down and then just trim the seam allowance. So I'll do that for the two legs, and then I'll come back to you. So that's both legs sewn for the inseam, and I've also trimmed the seam allowance as well down to half. And then the next step is to just sew the other sides, so the outer seams, leg seams. So pop that down this way so you can see that. So this is the side that we've just sewn, and now we sew all along the outside as well. So I will do that and then come back. So then I've sewn the other side of the leg and also trimmed that seam allowance as well. So now I can put both pieces, both legs together. Now the instructions show you to do it one way because it's showing you how then you leave a gap at the back to then insert the zip. So if you're inserting a zip, then I would suggest following what the instructions say. I'm going to be doing it slightly different because my trousers are going to be sewn up completely, as I'm going to be just using it as a pull-on. So I'm going to have one leg inside out and one leg right side out. So let me just turn this one the right way out. So that's the one that's the right way out. Then I'm going to grab the one that's inside out. And what I'm doing is I'm lying it so that the open kind of U shape, you probably can't see that, so the open U shape is towards me. So this is the one inside out, this is the one right side out. I'm going to put the one that's right side out, I'm going to feed it through here and then I'm going to get everything matched up. So I hope you might be able to see this. Can you see there? So that's what I mean about that U shape. So I've got one leg inside out, one leg right side out, and put them through. So right sides are together on these bits. So I'm working with the wrong side facing out. Hope that makes sense there. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch all the way around this U shape. And what you can do is you can reinforce a little bit down on the crotch if you want. But yeah, I'm going to do that. And then once I've done that, I'll be able to turn it all out and then I'll have a pair of trousers. So I'm going to get that all pinned and sewn up, and then I will show you what it looks like afterwards. So that is all sewn up there. I don't know if you'll be able to see, but what I've done is on the crotch, I have just, when I got to that bit, I went forward, then I went back, then I went forward again, just to reinforce that area just a little bit. So now when I turn them out, and there we go, we've got a pair of trousers. So they're looking very, very nice. So I'm going to take the pins out of the bottom, where I was trying to remember which ones the front were. I don't want to get those left in there. And yeah, they're looking really nice. And now it's just a case of attaching the bodice to the trousers. So what I'm going to do before I attach the bodice, I like to put a label in my garments. So what I'm going to do is add a little label at the back. So what I want to do is add it, but only to the lining piece. So I'll get it all lined up and everything, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with it. So here is my lining piece for it. So I'm just doing on the single layer. This is the other side of it. So this is where I want to have my little label, and I've decided I'm going to go for this one, which is "You've Got This." I just thought that'd be a really nice one, and I'm not often wearing jumpsuits, so I thought it'd be a nice little motivational one there. And I'm going to stick it yeah, just around about here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of my lovely Wonder Tape just to pop it in there for the time being, just so that it's easier for when I sew it. So I'm going to stick a little bit of this on the reverse, peel off the paper, stick it down where I want it. That will keep it in place just temporarily until I go to the sewing machine and actually sew it properly in place. Just a little tip there for anyone: if your labels move about a little bit, then a little bit of Wonder Tape on the back of your labels will be a good idea, and then it just washes off whenever you next pop it in the washing machine. So there we go, that is my label all done. I just think that looks really, really nice. So I've definitely got an inside and an outside now. So that's good. I've left this kind of inside out because I need to now attach the bodice to the trousers. So I'm going to grab my trousers and I'm going to do them laying down with the pockets facing me. And then I've got my inside out bodice here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it so that the label is away from me, and I'm going to put the trousers inside the bodice. So there we go, that is the back, and then the front there as well. You may be able to see I've got the straps dangling, so you want to make sure they're completely out of the way because we're going to be sewing this top bit. So just make sure your sweetheart neckline is definitely in line with the we've got it right side with the pockets, otherwise you'll have the bodice on the wrong way round. So that is all lined up. Now you're going to have to line up the seams as well. You've got the side seams to line up, and you've got the centre back seam you can line up. There is quite a lot of fabric, so it could be quite bulky to do, but yeah, it shouldn't be too bad. And I'm going to zigzag that all in place. I'm then just going to give it a quick try on, make sure it's okay. I don't need to make any other adjustments or anything. And then once I've done that, then this particular seam I will finish with overlocking, just because I just think it would look nice when I'm wearing it, while I'm putting it on, and I can see my rainbow thread overlocking just on the waist. So I'll do that, and then I'll come back and show you it. There we go. It is now looking like a full-on jumpsuit. And before I overlocked, I did pop out, I did try it on and made sure that it was all okay. Hence the reason I'm now not wearing jeans, I'm wearing my Hudson pants, which probably don't really go too well with the top I'm wearing, but hey ho. So yeah, I tried this on. It's absolutely fine on the crotch depth and everything. The legs I think are going to be absolutely perfect once I've just done a small little double hem. There is some gaping around the bust, which I know a lot of people have said about this pattern. It doesn't bother me because I'm planning on wearing this as a kind of, rather than a jumpsuit with nothing underneath, I'm planning on using it like dungarees and wearing it something like with a t-shirt like this underneath it. So that little bit of gaping actually isn't too bad because it allows me a bit of room for any kind of layering pieces. So, but I do kind of understand that a lot of people have that problem. So if you do want to make this just as a standalone jumpsuit, you may want to take that little section in a little bit, just on that side seam on the top of the bust. But yeah, no, really happy with it. So my last thing is just to hem the bottom of the trousers. So I'm just going to do a double fold on there and then a top stitch, just using zigzag stitch. You can use like a twin needle if you want to, but I actually don't mind the look of the zigzag stitch. I know it's not for everybody, but I don't mind it. So I'm just going to do that with the hem, and then I can pop it on and show you. And they're finished. And yeah, I've just left it on with my little t-shirt underneath, so you kind of get the overall sort of look that I'm going for. I think I might need to take the legs up just a smidgen more. I think maybe I needed maybe about 2.5 inches rather than 3 inches added on, because they kind of do sit kind of on the floor, but I don't really like my trousers kind of being that close to the floor. I like them to be a little bit higher up. So I think I might just unpick and just take up just a little bit more, just so that they're definitely nowhere near the floor. You probably won't be able to see too much detail in this light and everything, so I will insert some like twirls and things like that in the daylight so you can see it better. But I really love the overall look of it. It's got the pockets. They're not massive, the pockets, but they're still nice. And the waistline, actually I thought was going to be higher up because my natural waist is here, and the waistline is actually sitting more like kind of where my belly button sort of is, rather than my natural waist, but I don't mind that. And yeah, I just think it's really cute with the back as well, with this lovely little tie. I just think it's such a pretty detail. And so overall, I'm really, really happy with it. I am glad that I did a medium on the top and then graded out to the large, because it's not tight at all around the tummy, but it just skims. It's kind of, it feels close enough, but without stretching, if that kind of makes sense. And also over the hips as well. I didn't want to get kind of, you know, any sort of like hungry bum or anything like that if they were too tight. But they're actually a really, really nice kind of fit, and the wide legs are brilliant as well. So yes, as I said before, this little bit here, so if I wasn't wearing a t-shirt, I probably wouldn't be too comfortable with it being a bit gapey. I don't know if you'll really be able to notice it, but with wearing a t-shirt, you don't even notice it because you've got the layer. So yeah, really, really happy. So overall, really like the pattern. Instructions were absolutely fab as well. I'll be honest, I don't know if if anyone would actually need to insert a zip, because I found this so easy to get on over my hips. So unless maybe your proportions, you know, are kind of quite drastically different, then, you know, maybe you would need a zip, but I really don't think you'd need to. As long as your fabric's got a bit of stretch, I think you'll be absolutely fine. But I do like Friday Pattern Company. I always find their designs are just a little bit different and everything. So yeah, very, very glad that I have made it. So I hope you enjoyed. As I said, I will insert some twirls and things at the end of the video. If you did enjoy, please give me a thumbs up, and please let me know what you think. Comment below, and I'd love to know what you think. I have also recently joined Ko-fi, which is a donation page. And you know, you don't have to by any means, but if you do fancy giving me just a little like tip, you know, enough to have a cup of tea, then you can do that as well, which I will link down below, just because I just thought, you know what, I've been doing these so longs for a while, and you know, if anyone wants to give back, then please do. Okay, well, I will speak to you all very soon in my next video. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you soon. Bye.